Now it is going to be a panel discussion on future airport planning amid innovation and disruptions. So I would like to call upon my colleagues, experts in the field, Mr. Fernandez, Federal Fernandez, Managing Director of GCC, kindly come on the stage. Mr. Ibrahim Silha, please come on the stage as a speaker. Mr. Raymond Meli, kindly come. I'll be moderating the session, and it's a great privilege to be here among the experts in the field with the decades of experience, and I hope we'll do justice with the subject. Mr. Fernandez. So I welcome all panelists here, and we are going to talk about a very important aspect of innovation disruptions. We all know what disruptions we had. This COVID has taken over 2 years. And like yesterday, we were discussing about that lot of innovation needed after this 2 years. And what we have learned from the disruptions. Let me have a brief profile. It is very important for all of you to know the expert panels, what we have. We have Mr. Raymond Meli here. He is a global aviation sector manager who has got 360-degree experience in all areas of the aviation sector. He is a strong command of project delivery methods, execution, administration of contracts, re-engineering organization, work processes, greenfield airports, whatnot. If I start reading his profile, I think my time will be up. So it is better that I must say a man, really a man of aviation, whose heart beats for the aviation and who has got the expert knowledge of all the areas of it, especially in the context of innovation, disruptions, and what kind of planning is there. Then if I have another faculty here, Mr. Fernandez. He's the man who is going to talk to you about certain things which are never heard earlier. You see, he is the man. He's from Portugal. He is based in Dubai now. He's an investor relations and mentor. And he's also member of Board of Arab Aviation Summit. And he managed and executed strategies that supported UAE ambitious plan to lead. It's very important. And innovate and disrupt the aviation sector while ensuring the investment ecosystem for all countries. And then we have with us Mr. Ibrahim. He is the Vice President Sales for CETA. Everybody knows CETA. And the Middle East and North Africa, he is a very qualified person. He is done Masters in Computer Science, Lebanese American University, Beirut. He has 25 years experience in IT and telecom projects. Mr. Ibrahim currently leads the overall business of Middle East, North Africa, and customer relationship, sales and accounts management. He has a strong background of ITC and is the first in CETA 99 and a lot more business. He is an active player on it. So before I start, I think I would like to start for the very novel thing which is coming. Before I come to Mr. Meli, I would like to come to Mr. Fernandez to kindly tell that what kind of things are coming in the way of innovation with the vertical takeoff of the aircrafts. You see what we are talking about. We are talking about the robotics. We are talking about modernization, artificial intelligence in the aviation sector after disruption. So he is the man who will tell you what kind of research has been done from original equipment manufacturer and what kind of pilot projects have been done and what way the carbon emission thing is going to be reduced by way of electric aircrafts. And most interestingly, the vertical takeoff will, like a helicopter, it will be a sea change in the entire scenario across the world for the aviation industry. So over to Mr. Fernandez, kindly.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the organization for the lovely invitation. That's a very complex question. On behalf of our panel, I will not answer to all. I will just tell you guys what I am doing and with Vport, together with the teams, global teams, and our leadership. So Vport is here to design, to revolutionize the vertical infrastructure system. We have all heard about the flying taxis, the flying aircrafts, we call it urban air vehicles, and we are on the other phase. We are on the other spectrum of the development of this technology. But let me tell you that if on the last 2 years, $5 billion have went to the sector by investment, sovereign investment, private investment, and other companies' investment, I will say that 75% of that investment went directly to original equipment manufacturers. There is 220 original equipment manufacturers behind the legacy ones that we all know, Embraer, Boeing, etc. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, because these guys may fly, but we need to create social acceptance and we need to invest in infrastructure. This is precisely what Vport is doing. We tend to have 1,500 Vports all around the world. We have already our first corridor and connection between Canada and the United States. We are working closely with FAA, NASA, also with Canada Authority, and I run Middle East, where we are working on the first corridor for certification of all these players that are running around. The future will be vertical takeoff.
Any pilot project has been done in the world, and which country it has been done, and what are the original equipment manufacturers who have undertaken this exercise?
There's a lot of pilots being doing by original equipment manufacturers, so they just fly in, fly down, go around, but it's very difficult for them because they need to follow certain social acceptance rules from civil aviation authorities, which is very difficult. In our respect, as Vports, we already have lands, and I will speak about the Middle East case, but it's very interesting for you to search on the North America, where my team is getting a little bit more traction. In Middle East, we are at this moment speaking and designing new suggestions for the Civil Aviation Authority in multimodal teams. So we are creating the future. We have a plot. We sit down with GCA. We are now speaking with 4 different teams: commercial compliance, ATC management, airdrome, because airdromes will be different. We don't carry fuel, so we don't carry F-gas, so design will be different. The way that we approach is also different, so that we can finally have the certification on non-exceptional rules, meaning that everyone that wants to fly can come.
I'll come back again to you. Now, Mr. Meli, you have such an I'll come back to Mr. Fernandez again. One more thing which is aligned to it is, whenever we introduce any new thing in the aviation sector, it is very important to have the perception of the passengers. You see, the helicopters are there in the world across, but the acceptability and the reliance over the helicopter journey, even for short distance, is not much among the passengers. So I think what kind of activities we are having to have this particular takeoff and landing, must be having a pre-planned, you see, perception of the passenger, the stakeholders, how they take it. So any thinking about that has been done?
That is normally the third phase. The first phase is to demand. The second phase is what are we actually working with everyone. OMEs, there's more than 1,000 companies now in the area. I know that my partners here are also looking at that and working at that. And the third phase will be going to that. Sorry
to interrupt. You see, Mr. Meli, you tell me what is your take on it, what Mr. Fernandez has told, because you have varied experience across the world.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I agree 100% with my colleague here. Bechtel is very much involved in vertiports as well. And I think you have to take a step back, as you've said, Dr. Goel, and look at the whole, the operations as well as the infrastructure. A lot of the OEMs must get their aircraft frame certified and they're licensed to operate as an operator. So that is a process that all the OEMs are currently going through. And similar to my colleague, we're focusing and helping them more on the vertiport side. So vertiports, it's a network, it's an ecosystem. And having one at the airport in some ways is a little bit problematic with the airspace. A lot of the air traffic control colleagues that we just talked about get a little nervous when they see helicopters or eVTOLs, but that can be coordinated. It's setting the network up to have the nodes of the vertiports to provide the connectivity to the communities that you just talked about, Dr. Goel. I think from our point of view, we see vertiports and the whole eVTOL flying initially as a time-saving opportunity. So if you're in a big city such as Riyadh and you want to go across town or go to the airport, and instead of being stuck in traffic, you would use an eVTOL initially. Or it may be quicker to go to a smaller community. Currently, the range is about 200 miles for eVTOLs right now. So in the US, we're working on some of this, the inter-city connectivity, the intra-city connectivity, and setting up the appropriate vertiport locations. Again, it's about saving time. So you don't have maybe the big retail offerings that you have at an airport because you want to go there and get to your destination. So that's one of the business models that we're looking at right now.
You see, what do you say about the CO2 emission? Pollution is one factor which is coming across the world. And what kind of planning is there? Whether the electric aircraft is the answer, because the other vehicles are also everything to be having electrical, or what kind of variation, according to you, are globally acceptable?
Well, similar to my colleague over here, we're talking about electric vertical takeoff and landing. So obviously it's a very highly focused, sustainable option for transportation. There's also noise considerations. It's significantly lower noise than a traditional helicopter. But I think there's still community issues that have to be worked through for the environmental impacts of placing a vertiport wherever you place it. And because it's new technology, I think some of the people may be a little apprehensive. So it's about getting the communities comfortable with having a vertiport in a downtown location or wherever the vertiport may be. But then it's also getting the riders to be comfortable flying. And I won't speak for my colleague, but the people that we're dealing with initially plan to have a piloted electrical vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. And once people are comfortable, they will try to migrate to autonomous flying. But that will be down the road once the industry gets a little bit mature. But it's definitely something that's coming as a subsector of aviation. And all of us, I would expect in the next 5 to 7 years, will be using eVTOLs.
Now I come to Mr. Ibrahim about, you see, we talk about public-private participation, you see, across the world. Now, nothing can happen without the investment coming from the private sector and all. You have a long experience, over 2 decades, 2.5 decades, about the investment sector also. So what do you think about the investment coming for the greenfield airports from the private partners, and what kind of strategy the people in the aviation should form to attract the private-public participation?
Okay, thank you for the question, and good morning, everybody. First of all, we know very much that when we are deploying new innovation, new technologies, there should be some sort of investment, and this is something that is inevitable. However, if we are in a greenfield airport, the public sector can be instrumental because it's going to be a commercial opportunity for companies. We know terminals that were built by private companies on a BOT model by just assessing the commercial opportunity in the market. We know very much that even here in Saudi Arabia, Terminal 5 in Riyadh was a BOT, and even we know in Medina. These are all, and this is just some few examples we're getting from one country. There are other countries where business opportunities are there for companies. Now, from this perspective, it's always a cooperation between the two sectors, between the public and the private sector. Private sector in this case, public sector in this case, doesn't need to put any investment. They will be only regulators. And the private sector will do everything, including the technologies that will be implemented at the airport. The private sector in this case are business people. Business people, they are in charge of promoting aeronautical and non-aeronautical business inside the airport. And the more, and we know very much at the moment now it's 45–50% the non-aeronautical. And now we know airports, especially those run on a BOT, they put a lot of effort into increasing the non-aeronautical. So after all, it's a business proposition, and it is an area where the public sector doesn't go into investment. It is mainly the private sector that puts all the investment and be part of the business engagement.
Really,
if I
what
may
is
add-
your say on this?
I agree with everything my colleague said. I think it takes a certain type of investor to invest in a greenfield airport. And the reason is you're investing without any current business revenue. So your investment, you may not see the first return on that for 4 to 5 years. So it takes a select type of investor. When you talk about privatizing airports, you're buying an existing business and operations. There's a cash flow and there's a business, and then you can improve upon that. So it takes a slightly different type of investor when you talk about greenfield airports. But I agree that, I mean, the business projections are good, but you have to have deferred income.
And what about the brownfield airports you see? There's a need for brownfield airports also to modernize and all.
Yeah, we've heard a lot yesterday and today about different applications. I think all airports are in competition, which I personally think is great because it makes all of us collectively get better. It provides a better level of service to customers, a better level of standards and safety. But all brownfield airports need to be modernized and expanded to keep up with latest standards, security, and innovation. So it's an ongoing process. And you make an investment, you need to wait to get the return on the investment before you can invest again. So it's very cyclical.
See, whatever we do in the aviation sector, modernization, innovation, the key factor is the human factor. What about the skill development we look for? When we take over the airport, the private people are also participating. Suppose you start a new airport and all. It's not very easy to have the manpower from the market. You have to take from the other stakeholders. Probably there is a competition among the airport operators also. Like in my country, I come from India, there is a great amount of competition among the airports authorities also. When private player comes, he tries to snatch the skilled manpower from the other ready-made solution for the operations and all. So especially in the context of now era where the innovation is involved, where automation is involved, where artificial intelligence is going to come in a big way, what happens, what is your thinking about what the operators should do? The people are here, the audiences probably, they may be interested to know about what kind of skill development, learning, training and development you feel is required.
Okay,
yeah.
I can say, first of all, in CETA, we took over operations at Brown Airport. First of all, no airport has zero technological infrastructure, and no airport doesn't have IT resources who can manage and operation resources who can manage. First of all, we need to say one thing, and I have to relate this to this question of investment, because when we come in, from our perspective, we want to improve the technology standard at an airport to focus on a better passenger experience. So when we do that, we don't need to make a huge investment. This is the difference between going into a greenfield airport and a brownfield airport. In this case, we can reuse whatever investment. And this is good. In this case, even when we buy an operation or we come to run an operation, we don't start from scratch. I agree with my colleague that there is part of the investment is already there. So we just come to manage an existing operation, try to optimize the usability of the investment, but we can add on top of it. And I can just give an example of how can we make an airport instead of using documentation, paper documentation, we go paperless, and we make the journey of the passenger seamless and walk through. And when we want to do that, we don't have to rip off everything from the airport, throw it away, and bring new equipment. We can reuse the existing equipment. We can add the biometric devices like cameras, like face pods, like some gates, but this will be a reuse mainly of existing infrastructure. Now, the staff themselves, we know that there are capable staff at the airport, and this is where good staff could be incorporated into our team, and all this new knowledge will be injected into the team. We don't need to, hire from outside. We don't need to fire a large number of people. On the contrary, we can use the existing staff, upskilling, and use latest technologies as a mixture of all the components too. The objective here is to have a better passenger journey at the airport.
See, the manpower is a very big factor because 35 to 45% manpower cost goes, and every organization, every airport operator tries to reduce that. And a lot of robotics is now going to be installed. Mr. Fernandez, you have a great exposure in that field. So what do you feel about the future robotics? Because to my way, a robot is a robot. Whatever you feed in the memory, it cannot go more than 100. There is always a man behind the machine. So I say it cannot innovate. It can innovate, it can generate alternatives, but it will generate the best alternative you have fitted in that. So what do you say about the robotics future? Because we are dealing with the passengers and there are unanticipated queries also may come sometime.
Before answering that, I'm going to make a point on the last conversation so that you all in the room can understand the challenge that we have in Vports. We are dealing with, and this is a new name, newborn airports. But it's not green airports, it's not brown airports, it's newborn. And I will give you an example. When we wanted to choose a plot of 40,000 square feet, we chose it to be in a master plan on the airport area. And virtually my question was, where can we go that is far away from everything and nobody can even ask or set a challenge to us. So we stay in the corner on the end of everything, and now we have a big storm ahead. Regarding, and because it's a newborn investment, we also deal with challenges in HR that has to do, for example, we don't want helicopter pilots to flying eVTOLs because the price will be expensive. eVTOLs will be the same price of the cutting that I will take now for the airport. So HR, training and compliance, it's a newborn process also. And we brought Kay on board to discuss with us. We are discussing also that with the General Civil Aviation Authority. So it's very challenging. Regarding unmanned vehicles, we see, and as my colleague well said, there is a transition until unmanned flight. It's going to happen. Because it's impossible for us to imagine several waypoints or several corridors in our cities having people flying it. It's very difficult. So we will have a transition. I will say that most of the developers of eVTOLs, it's not public, but most of them are developing very complex and very advanced human systems that are ready now to fly. But I will feel that eVTOLs will be like a taxi, where we'll have a driver that will make some decisions, but very low-profile decisions. But at this moment, we will have a hybrid solution. We have a full pilot on board.
Mr. Mele, you were involved in designing of the airports also, in the planning process also. With your vast experience, you tell me that when you planned a greenfield airport, the focus should be what way we are catering the passenger, number one, when the passenger comes out of clearance from custom and all, and we proudly say within 15 minutes we got it cleared. Our target is when we plan it, that how easy access, without interference of the man, biometrics, and all kind of things we say, the clearance is within 15 minutes, 10 minutes, no time taken in immigration or customs. But what happens, he comes out of the airport and he is in the traffic jam. It is a common phenomenon across the world now on the roads, whether you to go to UK or to Europe or any country. So what kind of strategies should be planned for having an airport, greenfield airport?
As I said yesterday, I think it comes first to strategic planning and working with the owner, operator, the investors, the airlines, and the key stakeholders. What is the vision of the airport? And we hear about the seamless journey that you've referenced. That will probably come, but it'll take time. And so you have to be prepared to enable your systems and your airport for when that day comes. But I think it's really understanding the business plan. You need to have a sustainable business, whether we're talking about a greenfield, a brownfield, a vertiport. And that business, because it's a sustainable business, it can reinvest in itself to keep track with the innovation. When it comes to innovation, we heard yesterday there's certain policy decisions that prohibit innovation. So it's working with the regulators, it's working with everyone affected. And the traffic jams you talk about, they can be in the airspace, they can be on the airfield, they can be in the terminal, they can be landside. So really understanding the whole journey on an airport from the time you make your ticket purchase from your office or your home to get to the airport, to go through the airport, to get on the aircraft, to taxi on the airfield, then to the airspace, and that same journey backwards needs to be closely examined, and then look for ways to innovate. And we talked about innovation and technology. You asked about manpower. I think innovation and technology should do a couple of things. It should provide a higher level of service, but it also should provide efficiencies. So theoretically, as more passengers are flying with technology and innovation, whether it's process improvements, you can do more with less. And that really should be part of the goal, I think, for all of us, is to do more with less and still have a very elevated and enjoyable experience.
You see, I think in the planning process, we have to look on the one aspect very clearly, how the revenue can be generated from non-aeronautical resources. Like one very good area is parking. Parking can be a heaven for that. The food and beverage can be linked to the parking, and a lot of revenue can come from the parking. Like you see MRO. MRO is one area. We only focus about the MRO of aircrafts, aviation only. The MRO, the word says maintenance, repair and overhaul, which is applicable for other vehicles also at the airport. So all these audience are here, you are all from the aviation sector. I coined this idea that why not to create an MRO facility for other vehicles operating at the airport? Because your cars, your forklift, your trucks, your buses, your jeeps, well, other equipments all required MRO. So why side by side, one is MRO centric to the original equipment manufacturer, and for like Rolls-Royce has come out with a bug. It is like a bug, it will identify what kind of maintenance is required. So why we can't have a MRO for other agencies also earmark the space to the leading vehicles, and they can also have the business there, earning a lot of revenue out of that and saving time of the airport operators or the agencies working at the airport for their vehicles. Now my question, this is from all the panelists, what is your view about what I'm saying?
I can say something about, I think the opportunity here is not about MRO specifically for a side of the business. It is more on how we can enhance and optimize the operations inside the airport across the board through using the technology tools to, first of all, enhance the collaborative decision making inside the airport, at the same time having a live and always updated database of airport information where it's a single source of truth, where all the data is there, aeronautical, non-aeronautical. The airport is capable of making decisions. At the same time, to have the ability to promote proactiveness in not just to go reactively and resolve a problem, know when the problem could happen, know it in advance, and pull the resources on time to jump on the case, finish it before it becomes a crisis at the airport. And this is something that today, as we speak, technology is there to support. I can mention several projects where CETA has been involved around the world, where we have systems like ACDM being there to support in case of a congestion on the runways, unnecessary taxiing, the management of all the parking slots, all this stuff. This is something that is already reduced to a maximum. On the same level, systems like, we call it digital twins at airport, and digital twin is a concept that is widely used in the Formula One business. We make out of the airport all the components, all the services, all the things that run inside the airport. They have the digital copy on a big screen where we run all the simulations in advance. We know the data that flights that will come in few hours. We put it all in this mix of simulation, and then it will help showing in advance what the future will become. And then all the operation team at the airport First of all, they learn how to talk to each other, because this is, again, one important fact at airports. Silos are there. People do not talk efficiently to each other. But this is forcing them to come and sit and talk, because everything is visual in front of them, and find solutions before a problem happens. And this is the proactive approach. It's not technology. It's a concept of managing airports. Technology is only there to support and help achieve this objective.
See, some of the areas at the airport can be created for the passenger facilitation in such a form that instead of going to a mall, he is coming to the airport and have the purchases also.
Your question about car parking, I want to talk about that, but I think airports are under tremendous pressure to find new revenue streams.
Yes.
There are some that would take exception that say car parking is starting to be a dying business because of the impacts of carbon and sustainability. They're trying to promote more public transportation. But having said that, even some of the old non-aeronautical revenue duty-free models are really starting to go decline because of the internet and shopping online. We now can get almost any good or service that we want that previously you could only get maybe at an airport that you were traveling through. So airports are desperately trying to find new revenue streams that are non-aeronautical. And I think also some of the innovative ideas that I've seen are airports are now becoming a destination for the community that has nothing to do with traveling. They come for entertainment that's now afforded at the airport. They come for shopping that's at the airport. They come for restaurants that are at the airport and other events. So they have concerts at the airport. So airports all over the world are experimenting and coming up with some new ways to have alternate revenue streams. And the airlines really support this because it takes pressure off of them as much. So I think we all need to be a bit more creative in what an airport wants to be. Our friends in operations will say it has to be focused on operations, and rightfully so. But I think from a business point of view and from a community social factor, exploring different elements of what it could be as an offering and a destination, and the collaboration that my colleague talked about for the data sharing to make it more efficient, I think are ways to help that.
You see, the relating a passenger to the airport is very important, you see. I have recently seen that in the business class when I came and all, the Air India messages started coming right from the time I started from my house in the taxi. That your, you see, flight is on time and suppose there is a change in the gate number and all, and trying to relate the passenger with the bonding with the airport operator. And side by side there are promotional things also. That if you have got enough time or the flight is delayed, we have got foot massage facility, we have got library, we have got so and so whatever facilities are there. So it is very necessary. Revenue earning is one way, passenger facilitation is on another way, and a passenger is supreme. Because you see, it is our basic function. When I joined the aviation 35 years back, it was told passenger facilitation is my motto. It is, I'm working for that only. What do you say about that?
It's very interesting for us to challenge the business model, right? So as a newborn airport, there is no business model, right? So we have 40,000 square feet. We are starting to invest all over the world. We are buying places to show entities that we are for real, but we will not have people, at least for, I would say, 5 years, right? So the business model is very connected to MRO. Not the typical MRO, but the certification MRO. We did our research. There is around 1,000 companies, together with 220 original equipment manufacturers. I don't know if all of them is going to survive on the process. We bet that there's around 7 to 10 that will be testing with us. But nevertheless, there is 1,000 companies on the spectrum dealing with the skids, with the batteries, with the unmanned systems, software, avionics, and they need to certify. Our business revenue will come in the first years from that, from giving the place for them to test. And also, the biggest share of this is what we call the VOCC, the Virtual Aerospace Control Center. because we will be the ones integrating with air traffic management the flights it's going to happen. We are designing that software and hardware wise, because if we are hybrid in one moment, we will be fully unmanned, and that will give revenue for our business model. At the end, in 2035, we'll have the passengers and the movements.
You see, I have a limited time. You see, much away from my questions, I give free hand to my panelists. What is your take as a free mind? What do you want to say to the audience about this particular topic? Away from my questions. Let it be free choice. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You started this last round of questions about you getting text messages. I think underpinning almost all technology today, whether it's artificial intelligence or special software, is data. And to your comment, my friend, who owns that data? And that is probably one of the bigger impediments to promoting a seamless journey, in that if you book a flight with the airline, most airlines hold that as sacred data. It's their passenger. They don't want to share it with the airport. Now, the airport gets some data, they don't want to share it. You know, if you go to the Starbucks at the airport, they don't want to share it. And there's opportunities lost because everyone's holding on to that data. Obviously, there's data privacy issues that you have to deal with, but I think if the industry could come to sharing data more easily, I would think you would agree that that collaboration that you talked about would really start to be realized, because we all have the same data. So that's one thing that I would really like to see going forward, is the sharing of data. Obviously protecting it for data privacy, but the sharing of the data, I think, would really start to unlock that seamless journey that we all talk about.
I want to add one more thing. It's not just the data sharing is, it has to be an open mind, collaborative approach to doing business. Let me just give a quick example. When we developed the digital identity for using biometrics, it was mainly, originally, to get people through borders, because borders, according to all the passenger surveys, latest being IATA in 2022, people have a lot of stress when they cross the borders. They have queues, they will be asked about papers, something may go wrong. At one time, it disrupted the whole travel. The model was made to get across this. But once we can integrate the application that passengers use to register, to enroll, get the biometrics, share the biometrics. Once this model is, you don't need to share the data. You need only to share the credentials that are given back to you as a user from the government. If you can integrate this app with the airport, with the airline, with the ground handler, and with the airport, this is only, again, I repeat, it is the only time when a passenger can get the seamless walk-through experience at the airport. So a lot has been done 5-10 years ago. We started with the online booking. We started with so many things that passengers can do using their own mobile, their own comfort of home, doing the booking, etc. But now it is not enough. Passengers are asking for more. Even after, I remember I was reading, just making a comparison between the IATA passenger survey done 10 years ago and now. You can see that the same requirements are there, but now we are we're pushing the boundaries even further. And even the security check, which is the physical security, passengers are asking for a different scheme. Why don't you have, for instance, a trusted traveler program, whereby people who are trusted do not have to go through getting off their metal, etc. So passengers are asking always for more, and without this collaboration and sharing of data freely between all the stakeholders at an airport, there will always be bottlenecks, and the interesting experience, the long-sought experience by passengers will not be achieved.
My major takeaways of this session and all the sessions that have been here during these days is that, one, we are living definitely a very exciting time here in Saudi. A lot of muscle, a lot of great vision. And I see an innovation sector that most of the disruption in innovation will come from local companies, local people. And this is where you need to look at it and give opportunity to them, because the innovation will come from decentralizing services on this flow of muscle investment and infrastructure. So exciting stuff's there. And the second is a warning, is that vertical urban air mobility is here. And we need to start looking at our infrastructure and our strategic goals for that, to avoid companies like Vports to have such a hard challenges in newborn airports.
You see, one thing is very important. We are talking about introduction of artificial intelligence. In a lot of way, we say the human interference is not there. But you see, giving my entire data to the airline for purchasing my ticket, and sometimes for biometrics, for clearances at the airport, various points, I'm giving every data to the airline. And tomorrow, what happens if the data is leaked or the hacking is there? Cyber security is another very important aspect which is coming. You see, a few years back, Lufthansa got business loss in millions and millions of dollars because of that, and they were not knowing that data has been leaked or it has been hacked. So one thing in automation is to be taken care of, that whatever data you are possessing, even on the boarding pass, your QR code, if somebody after the flight you are throwing it, it can be misused like anything. You never know without your knowledge. What for your account has been opened, other thing has been opened. So it is a very dangerous proposition also. One way we are cutting short the time, we are going for automation, we are going for paperless things, we are going for, you enter the airport, no interference directly to the aircraft. But we need to take care that what measures we are having. Nowadays, hackers are experts. You have the people who are implementing, who are making cyber securities, other things. But believe me, the hackers have got more knowledge to decode. So they are becoming experts. So that leakage is very important to be threshold. Yeah.
I want to say something about that. It's a matter of design. So once a solution is designed, if I want to keep sharing biometrics across the board, and in the past we used to call it a biometric token. For me, it means only getting a copy of what you have, and then send it to all stakeholders, and then this copy could be replicated, and then others could use this copy, if not well verified in advance. I think there should be, again, my colleagues were talking about standards. So if we follow standards, we don't have to reinvent the wheels, not to create a new biometric models. I think this will be a solution. I just have to say one thing about a model that we followed in our digital identity design. We used the self-sovereign identity, SSI, which is one of the standard. It means one thing, that the identity, the biometric identity, is kept with the user. So I am a passenger. I don't give away my identity to an airline, to a ground handler. No, it goes only to the government. The government issues back to me credentials. So what I share with them is just the credentials. My data remains with me. This is one. And two, I decide with whom I share. So this is where the empowerment of passengers. I decide with whom I share my credentials and what level of credentials should I use. But most importantly, because we're using the standard, the ICAO digital travel credentials, and because the whole solution of SSI is based on blockchain, this is where nobody can, they can get my identity, yes, but what can they do with it? Nothing, because this identity has to be checked against my own biometric live in front of, computers will check on me. So my face on one side, my credentials on the other side, they both handshake, and this is only I get the authority to move on. Otherwise, I'll be stopped.
I think we are going to talk on this topic in the last session today at length. Our time is very short. I welcome questions coming from the expert panel. Any questions, kindly raise.
قاسم الشيخ LB Port Traveling Services. I apologize for coming late, but I like the idea of the decentralizing. It is really what the private sector is looking for. But how would you convince the major airlines to move from the huge system they have for 25 years to this decentralizing unit and convinced that this private sector could do a better job for them. With the full security you were talking about, by the way, without any misleading.
The decentralizing team and team on startups and innovation is very important. For example, all the airports and services in Saudi cannot wait for the major stakeholders to come and service them and wait for innovation and on the full scale, right? Maybe they can do it in 80%, but local companies with great ideas together with the local organizations can start building prototypes and seeing if it works and bringing an added value to the situation. And this is where decentralization will happen for a better. And it's important. It's important because it's an important fact of innovation in aviation is also the decentralization of services for smaller companies or brand new companies that have spotted the problem within the organizations and are bringing some added value. So this is also very important. And I feel that this will take a huge part of the development of Saudi with locals.
There is one more thing I can add. One of small companies in Saudi approached CETA for a solution that is usually offered at the airport. And again, this is where technology came to the rescue, because the technology that we managed to develop together with the Saudi company was similar in output to what could be done inside the airport without touching the systems that are already existing at the airport. And this investor, smart, and he has the connections with the airlines, managed to have a solution that he could use to manage his business and serve his clients without really needing to be inside the airport. Again, this is where technology comes into rescue and support the model that is presented by investors. All it takes is an investor willing to move into business and have his own business outside the airport. And this could perfectly be done.
We are running out of time. Any further one question I can take? I think we can wind up because we are already, time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have photograph. Now I'm coming to the next. Yeah.